Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient and have been dealing with cancer since late 2020, early 2021, and I am doing fantastic, doing really well. Everything is absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful every single day to open my eyes and have the opportunity for a new day. There's so many things going on that I want to share with you, but I can't share certain things with you quite yet, but I will, and I'm excited to do so at the right time. So I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have somebody from across the continent on the East Coast, and her name is Harriet Cabelly, and she is this is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy this. Look at that smile, and we're going to get going. So, Harriet, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on.
Okay, so thank you, Mark, and this is a great opportunity. We connected on LinkedIn, and I'm so glad that we found each other and that you invited me to be on your very inspirational show. So I hope I live up to that.
You
Okay,
will. You absolutely will. I know you will. I have
look at the
confidence.
ground and look at my sunflowers. So there we go. We already start off on a note of beauty. I live in New York on Long Island. Well, this is a show on cancer, so after I just say what I do, I'll dive into it, I guess. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have a private practice, and I specialize, ironically, in grief and loss. Ironic based on the illness and cancer and all that. Grief and loss, and as we know, loss isn't only around death. Loss is on illness and divorce and retirement, when people lose their sense of identity. So loss and grief is really around a lot of areas in life in terms of critical life transitions. But most people, when you say you're a grief therapist, they think death. So that's what I do professionally. I have kids, I have grandkids, I love to travel, I love living, I love life, I love flowers, I love quotes, I love books and reading, and you name it, a lot of stuff. So
All right.
I
I love the sign above right at your head. Be awesome today. I just absolutely love that. And I know you are awesome today. So let's talk about your cancer and what happened with that and how you discovered how you got cancer.
Yeah, out of the blue, I'll start, which I'm sure that's how most people discover it. Totally out of the blue. It was March of 2022, so it's a year and a half. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, large B cell. But before I get there, I want to give a brief backstory. I had been having a lot of stomach issues for the last few months prior to that. And now I've always had stomach issues. My gut has been my weak link, so to speak. You know, some people have migraines and this. I've always had stomach stuff, irritable bowel, all that. So I just figured, oh, it's one of those episodes. I already had, I had had an endoscopy and things were okay. So I figured, okay, whatever. And then I was getting sicker and sicker and losing more and more weight. And I'm a very big walker and I'm an exerciser. And I went to the boardwalk and I said to my husband one Sunday, I just can't walk. I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe I'm dehydrated. So we went to the emergency room in the city because that's where a relative said to go, that they have a great emergency room. And just in case it's something else, he's on staff and it'll be great doctors, to know somebody. Anyway, to make a very long story short, they ended up doing a CAT scan and they came out hours later. And I figured if it's hours later, it must be bad news, with a radiology report of a huge mass sitting on 3 organs. My husband broke down crying like a baby. I sat like probably a stoic rock, didn't know what hit me, and I was in total shock. And he couldn't even come up to the room with me. It was midnight when they finally came out in the emergency room and told us. he had to leave. I don't know how he got home alive because all he told me he did was cry and he couldn't even see through his tears. From Manhattan to Long Island's about an hour. And I
Wow.
was brought up into a dark room, no lights because there was a roommate. And all I thought that night was, okay, large tumor sitting on three, large growth, large mass sitting on three organs. Sounds like it for me. And I started thinking that I just want to go into hospice. And that sounds like a death sentence, even though they didn't say that. The ER doctor, who was very lovely but didn't know how to handle it, said, I don't know you and I don't really like to give such bad news. So I'm hoping what I say is not totally correct, but you'll see your doctor the next day. Okay. I just figured that's it. I'm dying. And I kind of went through my life that night and never went to sleep. And I don't know, it was horrific, very traumatic. But fast forward, within the next couple of days, I had some biopsies. And 6 days later, the doctor called me and said, it's better news than we thought. If you have to have cancer, this is one of the better ones to have because it's treatable. It's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, large B cell. So I thought, and this is how I processed it, that my verdict had changed from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to Saturday. And I said, okay, maybe God changed his mind. And instead of thinking, this is it, I was given a better sentence, so to speak. I'm Jewish. I have a very strong belief in God. I have strong faith. And I really looked at it and said, maybe the verdict was changed. So that's how I got the diagnosis. And then I was hooked up to, a good oncologist at Columbia and blah, blah, blah. And I was never given a stage, though. And I still to this day don't really get it. I don't know if she knew it and just didn't want to tell me because it was bad, or she claimed that this type of lymphoma didn't lend itself to stages. So I don't really know. I guess it doesn't matter. Right now, I'm in remission. I went through 4.5 months of intense chemo, lumbar punctures. It was pretty gruesome, but I got through it. And for me, that was, well, for anybody, that's a big deal. But I am a small person, and I had lost a tremendous amount of a tremendous amount of weight at the first couple of rounds of chemo. I had already come in less than I was because I lost weight just from not feeling well. So I was petrified that my body would not last through the rest of the rounds. I had 6 rounds, and that I would just succumb. And that's where my anxiety came from, the fact that I was just wasting away, and how would I get through it? But I just feel that I had every miracle in the book going, and that I was carried through. God, whatever you want to say. For me, it's God carried me through in the best way possible, with the least problems, even though they were, of course, it was not fun. And I was carried through with every miracle in the book. I never had to miss a treatment. I never got those awful secondary infections that people get and end up in the hospital. I was able to do all of my treatments except for one. For one, they started off in the hospital, was inpatient. But after that, all 5 I did outpatient. So I came home with like one of those fanny packs. I had the drip of chemo for 5 days at a time. And that worked out, thank God. So there were a lot of miracles every step of the way. And next week I'm having my PET scan. I have to have it every 6 months. And we know about skin anxiety. So I hope for the best.
So let me ask you this. So you get the diagnosis, your husband's distraught about it. How did you change course from there as far as, hey, let's, start moving forward and beat this thing? How did that happen?
I don't remember. I probably so repressed it because I was probably so traumatized or in such denial. I don't even know emotionally how I dealt with that first week, like until I got the actual diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I have no clue. I mean, I have actually worked around this with my therapist. It's like, I still have no clue for those like first 3 days. All I know is that I told one of the, I don't know, social worker or nurse who came around, and I said to her, I'm just telling you, and I'm letting people know, if it's truly that, and I'm given a certain amount of time, and it really sits on 3 organs, pancreas being one of them. I said, I want to go into hospice. I do not want treatment. That I remember clearly. I told my husband, and I told this social worker, I think she was, or a chaplain who came around. I said, I'm putting it on the record. And I remember her saying, don't go so fast. Let's wait and see all the biopsies. But I was really very sure of that. But thank God I didn't have to deal with that. But I don't know how I got through that first week. But after that, once I started the treatment, I was very focused on just one at a time, one step at a time, one treatment at a time. I've studied positive psychology, and I was very focused on staying present and not letting my anxiety run away with me to the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th. And I actually had a visual in my mind. I actually put it on a card, a horse with blinders. That was my metaphor. That's how I felt. I was a horse with blinders. I didn't look here. I never looked on the internet. I never looked up any of the medications I was taking. I didn't want to know side effects. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just put one foot in front of the other, and I did what I was told. And I feel like I was devoid of a lot of emotion. And that's funny, because as a therapist, we encourage feeling our feelings. But it was almost like this was how I was able to cope. Put it this way, after I had lost 20 pounds, and that was starting round 4, then I became much more of what I'll call a basket case emotionally. And I had to ask the hospital for some emotional support. But I got through that too. And I just kept saying to myself, one step at a time, and stop looking ahead. And I don't know how else to answer. That was my MO, like a horse with blinders on.
I think that's phenomenal. And I keep looking and I love that. Life is now in session. I just keep staring at it because it's such a great quote. And yeah, I think it's absolutely beautiful. But it goes back to what I say on this channel a lot is we have to be our own advocates. We have to fight for our own life because it's ours and it's not somebody else's. It's not for the doctors to say, how much time you have.
Right.
It's for us to fight for our life. And that's what it's all about. It's so important that people keep their personality and who they are, because that is what's going to carry you through as long as you're having positive thoughts and you keep moving forward in the right direction and advocating for yourself and fighting for yourself. So let's you were showing me some cards and things like that you did while you were going through chemo. Please talk to us about that, because this is something that anybody could do, and it doesn't matter if you have cancer or not.
Right. And it doesn't matter if you're artistically inclined or not, because, oh, there go my flowers. Oh, there goes my sign. I'll let it go. Because I am not artistically inclined, and I still draw stick figures. However, I love quotes and I love pictures. And like I said, I was working with a therapist throughout my treatment, but not the typical type. And I didn't join support groups. People said, join support groups. And I'm an advocate. I lead groups. But somehow for this, I said, I can't sit in a support group and hear everyone else's, in Yiddish, we have a term, tsuris. I can't hear everyone else's problems. It'll pull me down. I have to do it my way. So I found this amazing art therapist, and I said, this might be interesting. Someone more creative. Maybe it'll be a little bit of a different slant to therapy. And it was, and I'm still seeing her. Absolutely amazing. But putting that aside, so I started these cards on my own, and then with her, we did a lot more. So for instance, um, I love taking pictures. So this is a picture of me a few years ago, way before my cancer diagnosis, at Zion National Park. And I found this and I said, wow, this is beautiful. And mountains, I love nature. Mountains is strengthening, and it's like a rock and a foundation, and it's solid. So I cut this out and I wrote on top, embracing strength. And on the back, I wrote, my intention is to allow the strength of the mountains to support and embrace me in coping with this process. I would take these cards, you know, 1, 2, 3, to my visits. I had to have a lumbar puncture every cycle. And if you know what that is, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. I thought I was just going to have it once or twice. It turned out after every cycle of chemo, in between every cycle of chemo, I had to go for a lumbar puncture. I would take some of these cards. The doctors, or after a while, they knew me. Oh, what's your new card this week? So I would hold them and I would look at them and I would meditate on them, because I had to put my mind in a different place, in a different space. That's why I call these cards coping cards, because I believe they really did help me cope. And I continue to make them up even through now. You know, post-cancer is a whole other story about healing and continuing and rebuilding your life through that type of lifelong, forever worry that, you know, we have an axe over our head. Here's another one, just an example: renewal and hope. Like, this is a sunset, a picture of the sunset I took, and it says, my intention is for the sunrise to support me in hope and optimism to greet each new day. So I don't want to, I mean, I have tons here, but yeah, the creating them was uplifting for me. And then my husband would go and get them laminated, and reading them and carrying them with me into the hospital during lumbar punctures or visits or blood draws, or, whatever I had to do. Because even getting hooked up, even though I did like I said, I did my treatments at home, I had to go in, to get hooked up and to get my new bags and all that stuff. So, but I was also very cognizant during my days of feeling weak or whatever it was, to infuse my day with something positive. I think you mentioned before about it becomes something about our identity. And I didn't want cancer to be my whole identity. Like, my sickness becomes my identity. So, like I said, that I love pictures and reading and traveling. So I would make an effort to really infuse my day with, I water my plants. I would take walks in nature parks, even if it was a half an hour, even if it was 15 minutes, to put myself where there was nature and beauty, because that's what lifts me. That's what soothes me. I would go by the beach, not walking because I was too weak, sit on a bench and just look at the waves. So I was very intentional about that, because I knew that's what could carry me. And I think that's a very important thing to just get across, is we have to do that. And it has to be intentional, because if it's not intentional, it's too easy to say, oh, I'm tired, I'm just going to sleep all day. And there were days that I did. My doctor always said, listen to your body. There were days when I would just lay in bed all day. But you know what? Then I felt even crummier, because emotionally, when you feel lousy emotionally, everything feels lousy. Sometimes you have to push yourself, and at least your mood gets better, even if you don't feel so good, right? Because we know the mind-body is so connected.
I think you're bringing up such a fascinating point, and I want to point it out at this time for everyone. It's so important to make your cancer journey yours, so that you own it. And you've done something totally different than I did, which is great to see, because it just shows, some of the different things that can be done that could work. And so to give people a different idea of what can be done is fantastic. And people could see this and say, wow, I think I could do that. I mean, that's not for me, but it works great for you.
Mhm.
And it's up to each and everybody out there to figure out what is their way and
Exactly.
make it their own. Because if it's not your own, it's not going to work for you. If you're just doing something just to replicate, we have to own it and we have to make it us. And that's the way that you beat cancer, is by owning cancer in on your terms. And
Yeah.
that's so important.
On your terms. Yeah, definitely, definitely. But it's interesting because I guess a side point, but it's definitely relevant. I love reading memoirs more than novels. I like true stories. And I love reading how other people have overcome their adversities, have transcended, have coped, even way before my diagnosis. I mean, in general, this is my work, but I've always been interested in that. And I would get a lot of not only tips and learn how other people have done it and then try to incorporate some of it, but a lot of hope and inspiration. So that goes a long way when we then are facing our own challenge. So watching things about people overcoming, reading things, other people could say, oh, that's depressing, I can't do that. That's very helpful and uplifting for me. But the support group, that I couldn't do. And enough people said, come on to the support group, but like you say, it's very individual. Nope, I did not want to be a part of that one bit.
And that's okay. That's what it's all about, is as long as you can realize that you're making decisions to help you in your way. And that's the personalization of a cancer journey. It has to be your own, and it has to be under your terms, as long as it's moving forward and working towards getting better.
Right.
I see something on your right shoulder. You have a book. Can you please talk about that as well?
Well, we just talked about how I like reading nonfiction about people overcoming. So 5 years ago, I got this book published, Living Well Despite Adversity. Again, this has always been what I've been interested in. So having my own adversity was like, oh, people said, you better go read your book and bring in some of those tips into your life now. I interviewed 36 people. Some of them were kind of well known, and I did blog interviews, phone interviews, and I transcribed them into the book. And then I, just did some after comments about each interviewee, and I compiled it into a book. And each one, I call it a diversity of adversities. Each story, each interview is a different type of challenge. So whether it's someone who became a paraplegic from a car accident, or someone's overcome drug addiction, or someone lost a child to suicide, all different types of situations, challenges where people have not succumbed and rolled up in a ball and said, my life is over, but have taken it and grown from it and used it to propel themselves in a growth oriented way. Because again, I believe that these stories are sources of hope, inspiration, and education to other people when we have our challenges. We all have them. The issue isn't whether we have them, it's when we have them. And then what do we do with them? But no one leaves this earth unscathed. We're all going to have our and you can still have a rich life. That's why I like the word despite. Living well despite, because we can live very well despite. I have had other things. I have a daughter with disabilities. I mean, we all have our stuff, and you can still have a good, rich life.
Well said, beautifully said. I absolutely love that, and I love your spirit. What would you like to leave with our audience today, as a final thought?
Not just that I don't want to say we're our own worst enemy, but we shortchange ourselves in terms of what our potential and abilities are. We shortchange ourselves by saying, oh, that's not me. I don't have that strength and resilience. I wasn't born that way. But that we all have much more potential than we believe, much more strength and abilities that we believe. We have to grow them. It's like a muscle. Resilience is like a muscle. You grow it. If you think you have 1%, you can always bump it up to 1.5%. There's always an ability to grow more. We're not changing. I like to say we don't overhaul our whole personality. I'm not becoming a Mr. Rogers type B. I'm a type A. But within our basic structure, there is so much change and movement that we can do. So when dealt with a rough hand, like a cancer diagnosis or anything, if we come in saying, oh God, I don't know, how am I going to deal with this? We step up to the plate. We do. Whether we get help from outside, whether we turn to our faith, whatever we do, we can do it. And not self-impose our own limitations or our own mindset where, oh no, I can't do this. Because if we say we can't, we can't. If we say we can, we will.
Well said. Just phenomenal advice. I love that. Absolutely love that. I love your quotes, and I'm just looking at the quote by right by your head again today where we started. Be awesome today. Thank you so much, Harriet. You were
Thank you,
awesome
Mark.
today. Absolutely awesome.
This was fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And down the road, let's meet up again, do another interview. When you get further, we get further down the road, and I'd love to hear from you again. And
Definitely.
I think you have a great story, and keep thriving and keep spreading the positive news to people and keep inspiring people, because that's what this life is all about, is we come together as people and help each other and inspire each other to uplift all of us. And that's such a great thing. And
yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harriet. It was a blast. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. Please subscribe, like, make a comment in the comment section. And I always like to leave with a couple of positive quotes, and I have a couple from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And the first one is, think. The successful idea is always in your mind. Think it out. And the second one is, make a mental list of happy thoughts and pass them through your mind several times a day.
Oh, I like that. Who said that one?
It came from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale's book. I assume it's from him, but I don't know. Yeah. I love it too. Anyway, I always like to end interviews by saying, hey, let's do what Harriet does, and let's all try to help make this world a better place, because the only way this world, and there's so much going on and there's so much negativity, that it's going to take people coming together, being positive, spreading positivity. You don't know what that next person is going through. You don't know what that person at the bank is doing, or the teller or the checker at your market, what they're doing, how they're living their life. Are they having a good day? We don't know any of that. So if we could spread a little bit of positive things with them, by smiling, by saying, how are you, by doing just little things, you don't know how that will affect people. And so if we all make an effort to do a little bit every single day, and then pretty soon you're going to be doing a lot, that is how we can help come together and help make this world a better place. So thank you once again for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much, and have a phenomenal week. We'll see you next time. Thank you.